Thanks very much for staying with us. Time now for Eye on Africa with me, Georgia Calvin-Smith. Tonight, Sudanese pro-democracy protesters suffer one of the deadliest days since thousands started taking to the streets in October to denounce a military takeover. At least 7 are killed as security forces open fire, reportedly with live rounds. Also, sanctions on Mali's military junta continue to bite. The UN's mission in the country is also suspended all but medical evacuation flights. The nation's also coming to terms with the death of its last democratically elected leader, Ibrahim Boubacar Keïta, who died over the weekend. And it's draws all around at the Africa Cup of Nations. But that still sends Cameroon soaring to the top of Group A, setting up a saunter to the last 16. Meanwhile, the light dims on Ethiopia's hopes. But first, Monday was one of the deadliest days for Sudanese protesters since a military coup in late October. At least 7 demonstrators were killed after security forces opened fire on huge rallies in Khartoum. For almost 12 weeks now, crowds have been turning out around the country, almost daily, calling for a civilian-led transition to democracy. At least 71 people have been killed so far. There's been international condemnation of the crackdown, and the latest violence will complicate the United Nations' hopes of facilitating talks between all sides in the crisis. The pro-democracy movement already called for 2 days of civil disobedience over Monday's shootings. Naba Mohideen joins us from Khartoum with more. Naba, you witnessed some of Monday's deadly clashes. Can you tell us why you think that things escalated so far this time?
Yes, at least 8 protesters are killed due to doctors' committee, and there is other cases. I believe the number is rising. There is a lot of deadly casualties, and over 129 people were injured, more than 80 of them with live ammunition. This violence has no explanation, and people raising an eyebrows why military authorities and the government now, there is no executive government, but the authority right now, why are dealing with the protests with such violence. There is no need for this violence. But it followed accusations of for the protesters of the killing of the police of commander of police. But I think it's not justified because already the authorities stopped people who are accused with the killing of the police commander. Even if there is some suspect of protesters, the authorities should not handle the protest with such violence. It leads to deadlock, and it leads to more chaotic scene. And of course, for a deadlock, for any solution, even if there is initiative by anyone, internal one or the UNITA's initiative, such violence will lead for chaos, just like the resigned prime minister has warned.
And what is the plan from General Abdel Fattah al-Burhan? Now, he also held an emergency meeting on Monday. Do you know what came out of that?
There is a lot of points, but the main points are 4. The first one is to form a unit, a special unit to defeat the terrorism without even defining what terrorism is and what the threat of terrorism right now, because the biggest threat is the political situation and the deadlock of the political scene. Other thing is to order the troops of the peace, after the peace talks, rebel groups came with their militaries and militias inside the capital. So there is orders right now to take them out and to come out of the country, of the capital, because it's also a threat. If there is any chaos take place, a lot of militias and militaries inside the capital may lead to a chaos and a civil war. Other thing is to verify the emergency or the law of emergency against the protesters and the protests. And I think it's a relapse, because after the deal signed with Hamdok, the verification of the law of emergency should be cancelled. But this is a relapse, because that means that the Sudanese people right now are facing the military coup without even a political facade or political incubator. And the last decision is the reopening of the borders with South Sudan after the borders were closed due to the tensions, and that affects the two neighboring countries' trade. So this is the main points about the meeting today.
And very quickly, Naba, just do you think that the UN's hope of helping talks along has much of a chance?
Actually, this is the only chance for everyone who wants a solution in the country, because the violence will lead to more violence and to endless circle of chaos and to a deadlock. So yes, there is a hope that UNITAM may hold talks, but with the escalation and the violence, this will lead to a deadlock, and that means the authorities is not serious about holding any talks, because if they are serious, they should stop violence and start talk with the political counterpart.
Thank you very much, Nama Mahadine, there for us. In other news, the UN's mission in Mali suspended most of its flights in the country. Only medical evacuations will go ahead as MINUSMA discusses new procedures on the approval of UN flights with the country's military junta. Now, it seized power in 2020, leading to regional bloc ECOWAS to recently bring in sanctions earlier this month in response to military rulers' proposal to stay in power for another 5 years before returning to civilian rule. The penalties have been backed by the US, the EU, and France. Meanwhile, the Malian president, ousted by the country's current military leaders, has died. Ibrahim Boubacar Keïta passed away aged 76. Although elected twice, his last days in office were marked by mass protests and his forced resignation. Shirley Sitbin with more.
Political allies, friends and family mourned Ibrahim Boubacar Keïta, Mali's former strongman, in his family home in Bamako. Keïta, elected twice for president, had difficult mandates. He not only failed the difficult missions of bringing peace and ending Mali's economic struggles, but he was criticized by protesters at the end of his time in office and was ousted by the military now in power. The government sent its condolences to the family, saying it saluted the memory of a great man. Heads of state like Ivorian President Alassane Ouattara and Senegal's Macky Sall hailed Keïta as a great statesman who fought for democracy and peace. In France, former President François Hollande remembered Keïta as a leader who fought for unity after a jihadist takeover in the north.
When he was elected president of Mali, we worked together so that Mali could recover control over all of its territory.
Many regretted the way Keïta's life ended. He was detained after the coup, and then his health deteriorated until his death.
Bon, sa mort me choque énormément parce que c'était notre président. Nous l'avons combattu, mais c'était un homme de paix, de parole.
Moi, personnellement, j'aurais beaucoup aimé le rencontrer pour nous présenter nos sincères excuses.
Many Malians said, "May the earth be light on him," the traditional way of wishing that Ibrahim Boubacar Keïta rest in peace.
A fuel shortage has sent petrol prices soaring in Uganda. Truck drivers have been stuck in huge tailbacks at the border with Kenya as officials face days-long hold-ups in coronavirus testing. The energy ministers blamed the bottleneck on technical issues with the equipment used at the frontier. In some parts of the country, fuel prices have tripled, whilst elsewhere, pumps have already run dry. And finally, a 1-1 draw with Cape Verde has left hosts Cameroon out on top in Group A at the Africa Cup of Nations. The indomitable Lions will stay in Yaoundé for their last 16 game due next Monday. Cape Verde still faces a wait-and-see, though, over whether they'll progress. Monday's other tournament showdown saw Burkina Faso secure the second spot in the group with another 1-1 draw. That result, though, saw the light go out on Ethiopia's hopes of going through. Simon Harding talks us through the highs and the goodbye.
Honours shared between host Cameroon and Cape Verde at the Olympus Stadium here in Yaoundé, a result that, if truth be told, will suit both teams. Cameroon finish the group stage with 7 points, still unbeaten thanks to another goal by captain fantastic Vincent Aboubakar, who has now scored 5 of his country's 7 at the Africa Cup of Nations here in Cameroon. An equalising goal for Cape Verde, which came in the second half, courtesy of a wonderful Cruyff flick by Rodriguez. Cape Verde, who then sat back, content to play out the draw, a draw which means that they finish with 4 points and should now access the last 16 as one of the best third-placed group stage teams in the competition. In the other match of the group, it also finished 1-1. Burkina Faso drawing with Ethiopia. Burkina Faso took the lead before Ethiopia levelled via a penalty after the interval. It means that the Ethiopians avoid losing all 3 of their group stage matches, whereas Burkina Faso do qualify for the last 16 with 4 points. Cameroon will still have tough questions to answer. They are still yet to play against one of the so-called bigger nations on the continent, but for sure the indomitable Lions will be happy with their group stage performance as they look ahead to the next stage in the tournament, the Africa Cup of Nations, which of course returns on Tuesday. Plenty of action in store, including a massively important game between Ghana and the Comoros Islands. The Black Stars are going to have to win that match if they want to qualify for the knockout stages.
Simon Harding there for us, following the games in Cameroon. That is, though, all we have time for on Eye on Africa. Thanks for joining us. Do so again. Take care.
Like they say, repatriate? How are they going to repatriate you to some country that you've never even lived in?
Every year, the United States forcibly returns more than 100,000 Mexicans to their country of origin. Yet many of them have grown up or built their lives in the United States.
Todo lo que había construido, todo lo que había tenido, se fue de un día para otro.
With all legal recourse exhausted, deportations across the border are destroying families and careers.
Esa línea me impide abrazar a mi esposa. Puta línea.
Watch Reporters Plus on the line on France 24 and France24.com.